dancehall me from creation.
Yes, guys, this is Sam Spanner from the United Forever Podcasts. This is episode 48, and I'm with my absolute fucking legend of a cousin.
Adam Shagum, how are you? I am.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. So, fucking hell, mate.
Good.
I thought this episode had to be done, all right? So, it is not like a typical footy episode. This is it's going to be one of our specials, all right, to add onto the family and mates playlist, all right? So we're going to be taking the piss out of one of my childhood friends, Josh, or Joshua. He's a fucking nutter. And I just thought, he's just one of those random weird people or like person that just needs to be fucking mentioned. He needs a podcast because he's just so fucking funny.
Needs to be appreciated.
So, defo, mate. So he's just one of those fucking local working class heroes. And we've done a few of these episodes before. We've taken the piss out of our mate David R, being the original Undertaker, and his brother John, who failed in one of his life aspirations at becoming a successful bin man. So that didn't work. So, mate, we shall begin with some traditional shout-outs. So the last episode we did was dedicated to the victory over the Citizens. And also we did quite a few puns, medieval-themed puns. And we had quite a few participants. But before we do that, I'm just going to give a shout-out to Tommy Worrell, who's one of our frequent listeners, and basically he was just saying how he had a fucking blinder of a hangover. So I hope that our episode helped him get over that. And then I find this quite amusing. We've got a trio of mates, fucking Will, J and Donald, the Belch Brigade, making reference to my fucking nuclear belches in the last audio pod. And then the one and only Boomhauer, our favourite Texan, made some he made like a fucking decent sort of reference to the fact, like since Tellers and Hendo have come back or come into the squad, they sort of relit the fire under the asses of Double D G and Luke Shaw. And in the sort of comment he made, I thought it was quite decent, like making reference to Big Dave. There is a debate open, like I sort of interpret that he still thinks that Dave's got stuff to offer.
Yes.
There has been improvements this season. And he's under contract. So, I mean, if we've got players like Fred, if we've got Shaw, we've got McSauce, we've got Rashford, all these different players that have managed to improve under our coaching staff. I mean, maybe De Gea can sort of rekindle his form from the yesteryears, if you know what I mean.
Potentially. I think with the point that Boomhauer made about obviously with Tellez and Hendo,
yes, mate.
Lit the fire under De Gea and Shaw. I think the one that's reacted best so far is Shaw.
Yeah.
He's reacted and dealt with the competition a whole lot better than what De Gea has.
Totally. He's on fire. He's on fire, and he's fucking up for it. And mate, I reckon he's. I was going to say he's on some of Howson's Red Bull, maybe some of Jamie Vardy's snuff as well, mate. Because he's
exactly. I think
he's up for it.
Obviously, Hendo is going to get a little bit of a run in the team because obviously with De Gea having to isolate when he comes back from
Yeah,
Spain and things like that. So it'd be good to see him get a run of games. I don't know how many that will be. 6, is it?
yeah, I reckon so. Maybe more.
6.
Because I
Yeah,
mean, if
yeah,
De Gea ain't match fit, you know.
exactly.
So
So
I mean,
it'd be interesting to see how
if
the
he's
rest
in a
rest of the
hotel
season
room
pans out.
prison cell,
Yeah,
sorry, mate,
exactly.
repeat what you said.
It'd be interesting to see how the rest of the season pans out for the number one. If De Gea will
Yeah,
just come
totally.
back in and claim it, or if Ollie will go, you know what, I'm going to give Hendo a run to the end of the season and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen, really. But I mean, yeah, what I was trying to mention, we had a bit of a sort of crossover there. I was trying to say that, you know, if he's quarantined for 2 fucking weeks in a hotel room, I mean,
Yeah,
De Gea isn't a muscly person, and if he loses more muscle mass, then it'll be like having a fucking lollipop stick between the posts, you know. So
exactly,
anyway, mate,
exactly.
I've got some. So we did medieval puns for ex and current Palace and City players, and we got a few,
Yep.
you know, lads that got involved. So we got that big red bus, our favourite bus driver, who said Dobby Howler, and I had to think hard about this, and he did
Yep.
confirm this one. It was Robbie Fowler. So we had a bit of a Harry Potter link going on there, and then our matey boy Diego Forlana, he said Sven Gollum
Yep.
Eriksson. So we got a bit of a Tolkien thing going on.
Tolkien thing.
And then
Yep.
United Steve 79 said, instead of Lee Bradbury, flea infested
Yeah.
Bradbury. So that was pretty clever. And then the
Definitely.
one and only Santa Notch, he came up with Huey Royal Slur, Wayne Heinessy, and he came up with another pun for the ex-City captain, Richard Dunn. Richard
Yeah.
the Hung, Drawn and Quartered.
That
So very
was
fucking
clever.
creative there. It's brilliant. We love a
Yeah,
mashup. And
definitely.
mate, recently I've been trying to catch up on some of Notch's content on his channel. So I watched a
Right.
nice vlog of him going for a walk around the canals and stuff around his area of London.
Yeah.
And then another video that was really cool was where he was visiting Ramsgate, taking a tour around there,
Right.
looking for a potential place to buy. Because I think
Right.
he wants to move nearer the coast, and I did say to him near
Yep.
the Costa del Kent. So when you're over on Mersey Island, mate, you can
Yeah.
get your telescope out and give Santa Notch away from where you are, and
Yeah. That's it.
you can show him your greasy burger, mate. Because we do love a greasy
Yes.
burger from Mersey Island, and
We do
good chips
indeed.
as well. And then you,
Yes.
And then the last one that I watched was the Paddock Day Trip one that he did. So he travelled up to
Right.
Manchester, did a little tour around
Yep.
there, and I thought it was fucking hilarious because he did a couple of impressions of Jay Motti and Steve House and outside Old Trafford. So that made me chuckle. So yeah, fucking brilliant Notchster. And then after that, he got
Oh,
invited back to the Paddock studio to watch them do
really?
a podcast, which was fucking sick, mate. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm hoping that Santa's going to get invited onto the paddock for a Howson's brew on a random Friday. So
Yeah.
yeah, right.
That'd be good.
So changing the topic, mate. My fucked up mate
Yep.
Josh. Here we go. So I met this lad right in secondary school, and I've got to say, like,
Right.
he was probably one of the biggest misfits in my form. So, we came from different primary schools, and I met him. And I thought, mate, this
Yeah.
kid hasn't got his head screwed on right. And he was like one of those random lads that's sort of away with the fairies most of the time. And then
Yeah.
I thought, mate, how is he going to do well at school? And he didn't do too badly, but some of the weirdest shit was like when he'd just come out with random comments in class. And he looked like a good boy, but he'd get in trouble from time to time. So we were in maths, right? This was before we got sort of divided up into different sets and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
And somehow he managed to end up in the top set in maths. So, it was a surprise and a half.
Yeah.
And anyway, I remember our first maths teacher was called Mr. Grinnell. And
Right.
we were sort of analysing the different angles of triangles and stuff. And Mr. Grinnell's was
Right.
looking at sort of an isosceles triangle, and he was pointing to some corners, and he was like, "So here you can see that these have got the biggest." And Josh put his hand up, and he said, "I beg to differ. I've got the biggest." So we were just fucking laughing our heads off. And this fucking teacher, mate, he was like fucking going ape shit at us. And yeah, so he was actually Josh, right? He was quite a polite boy at times, and he ended up being quite
Yeah.
sociable, especially with the dinner ladies. And
Right.
the crafty bugger, we did like a good tag team when we were lining up at the typical canteen tuck shop. So we stood in line,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Sam," it's like, "What?" It's like, "Undo the zip on your bag." And I'm like, "What the fuck do you want?" And he said, "Open it and just hold it down there." And he somehow knew all the names of the dinner ladies. Like, I don't know how the fuck he did that. He like chatting them up, and they were not attractive, I can guarantee. And he's like, "Oh, you know what, Moira? That smells delicious. What are you cooking over there?" And when the dinner lady turned around to just have a look behind her, he fucking did a full-on forearm sweep and knocked bits of flapjacks, you name it, donuts, fucking this, that, and the other into my fucking bag. But then
Brilliant.
you do other shit at school, right? So I remember, like, I mentioned, didn't I, in the episode we did, the mother of all banter, when he had problems with constipation and he'd bake a turd for
Yes.
like fucking days on end. But he always had a fear, one of his random school fears, where like he'd be scared that he'd need a shit and he'd have to go to
Yeah.
the toilets, but there wouldn't be any bog roll. So
Right.
this kid actually fucking had a stash of bog roll in his fucking school bag. And I swear, the amount of times he'd come to school without his fucking school books, he'd get his fucking priorities, right? His bog rolls there.
Yeah, I forgot my maths book, but I've got a length of bog roll.
Oh, fucking brilliant. And so
Oh god.
one random winter, right? So fucking, I forget how cold it is over in your part of the world, but as
Yeah.
kids, do you remember we used to have those, what were they called, like bomber jackets, where they'd have like sort of like Michelin
Yeah.
pads, bit like Arsene Wenger, but not full on
Not
caterpillar
so long,
sleeping bag thing.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, like if you had a decent quality one, you'd be able to find the odd feather, like squeeze it like a proper spot on your
Yes.
face, and squeeze the
Yeah.
feather out. So
Yeah.
I happened to be pissing about one break, and I'd squeeze the feather out of the coat. Hold on, and I'd throw it up in the air, and I'd sort of
Yeah.
like suck the air, and I'd catch it between my
Right.
teeth, and then the other kids started to copy me. And
Yeah.
fucking Josh, the one with the least coordination, fucking squeezed a couple of feathers out of his coat, threw them up in the air, and he sucked too hard and he got one jammed in his throat. And then he went fucking
Oh.
purple, mate. He was gasping for air. And then the next thing you saw, he fucking chundered everywhere. Oh my god, terrible, mate. So,
Oh, fuck you.
do you know what? And
Brilliant.
he'd do really weird shit as well at school, right? So I'll give you an example. So, um, him and this other lad in our class, Peachy, right? They used to like do dares who could do the most disgusting thing. And then what
Right.
they did is they used to sort of tear the crusts off their sandwiches and then they
Yeah.
dip them in puddles and like dare each other to eat them. Josh would take it to the extreme and fucking dip the whole sandwich in the puddle and eat it. Fucking
This is
novice.
moist.
Mate, he'd be like away with the fairies, I swear. I remember in PE,
Yeah.
he was a proper Trevor because, like, in year 7, right, like when we started secondary school, like he wore the teachers said we could bring our own black shorts as long as they weren't too sort of like, they didn't stand out too much. So, you get kids that try and
Yeah.
bring in Adidas ones or Nike shorts to sort
Yeah.
of try and show off a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the standard school ones were like proper late 80s, like short length, like you could imagine Chris Waddle
Nice.
wearing them with his fucking long mullet and stuff. And then it was Josh. We were all sat down, right, in the hall, and he didn't realise, but his fucking cock was hanging out the side of his shorts. And half the class was fucking pissing themselves, and Josh didn't have a fucking clue why. Oh, this
God,
is
you must
cruel,
be worse
but
than having your pumps hanging out.
I know. But there was another time when, mate, he was like, we were in PE again. And you know how people used to keg each other? If anyone doesn't know
Yeah.
what kegging means, it's when you pull someone's pants or shorts down or whatever. So Josh was stood there. We were like in a circle. Some fucking dickhead, proper chav, can't remember his name, came from behind and did a full-on keg. And I thought they were only going to keg his shorts. But his fucking pants came down as well. Cock out again. He went fucking ape, obviously. Oh dear, oh dear.
While
Mate, and
everyone else is
then
pissing themselves.
exactly. Mate, this kid, right? So I don't know when it was like year 8, year 9, wasn't it? When puberty kicked in and whatnot. But
Yeah,
mate,
roughly.
once he discovered that, so basically, once he discovered his balls had dropped, he was always
Yeah.
on a fucking wankathon. The bastard would be in class and he'd like be banging one out under his coat. Like, what the fuck you doing, Josh? And he's like just having a discreet one. I'm like, mate, you're doing a fucking good job of that, you bastard.
Oh, this is amazing.
Mate, if anyone's listening to this, they must be thinking, what the fuck? So yeah, this is hardcore shit, lads. So apologies if anyone's offended. But mate, I suppose lockdown makes you go crazy. And this is the kind of shit me and you would be talking about if we could be down the
Yes,
pub together. But we're fucking
definitely.
separated miles apart. Not just miles, but fucking
Exactly.
2,000 miles apart. So dear,
Yeah.
oh dear. So this is our
Oh,
sad
it's
social
fantastic.
life at the minute.
I'm
So
fucking crying
fucking hell.
here.
So I'll tell you what, right? There was this teacher who was not that bad. She was like, if we were in, say, year 8 or year 9, there was this teacher. She must have only been about, say, 23. She'd finished uni. She'd have done a PGCE. If anyone
Yeah.
doesn't know what that is, that's basically getting their teaching qualifications sorted out. So she was basically a newbie, right? And she was quite fit. The thing is, right,
Yeah.
she wore fucking short skirts, and that was provocative, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously, Josh, being Josh as he was, he was obviously quite aroused. She wasn't that fit. I mean, we had a PE teacher at school. She was fucking well fit. But anyway, I'm not going to deviate on that. And Josh randomly, okay, so this happened on fucking more than one occasion. Josh the bastard just shouted out randomly, Miss, Sam's got a stonk on. And I was like, fuck off, fam. And I got fucking detention. And fucking missed the school bus home. And I was like trying to sort of literally plea my innocence. I was like, this ain't true. Where's the fucking evidence here? And she's like, this is unethical and all this crap. I was like, I want my fucking lawyer. So we started this trend, right? So we went around after that to get a bit of revenge doing kidney jobs. So you're probably thinking, what the fuck's that? So I'd do like karate chops into the lower back. And I always go for Josh. Fucking winding, mate. So I did get my own back. But the fucking prick, right? So he did it again in a random English class. In Miss Brabham's class. Miss Brabham, mate, she was fucking close to retirement and she was not impressed. Fucking wanker, mate. But I'll tell you what, I shall tell thee, this fucking prick, right? He got a taste of his own medicine. There was this like full-on chav girl right in our class called Michelle.
Yeah.
And she was fucking rough. I mean, not like rough in looks, but like rough, like full on. As your dad would call her, a fucking diddy coy.
Yeah.
So, mate, I don't know what Josh had done to piss her off, but she fucking literally did like a Conor McGregor knee to the balls. And you never guess what happened afterwards. Josh was that badly winded. He had to go home. His mum had to come to school and collect him. Sorry, this is fucking wrong. Oh dear.
Bloody hell.
And then
yes.
Dear oh dear. So all right, this kid, right? So like back in the day, this was before like FIFA was big and stuff. He was obsessed with this old computer game called Actua Soccer. And it was the first one, right? And they only had international teams, if I'm not mistaken. And he would always choose Sweden for some reason. And there was this striker for Sweden back in the day called Martin Dahlin. And he'd copy the commentary, like the commentator, because every time Dahlin like scored a goal or was just about to shoot, the commentator used to go, Dahlin! And then you'd hear Josh just randomly walking down the fucking corridor at school going, Darling, every fucking 5 meters, darling. Stupid as fuck, mate. And I'll tell you something, right? His diet, right, consisted of 3 things, really. It was basically Cocoa Pops, fish fingers, and Ribena. So he used to do fucking toxic paste farts, mate. They were like, he was obviously suffering from constipation, but they'd be like long, dry farts. And I swear the smell wouldn't fucking disappear forever. And his dad, right? His dad's a fucking lad and a half. And
Oh god.
so I was last time I saw his dad. His dad looks pretty good for his age. And I said to him, "Fucking
Yeah.
hell." His dad's called John. I said, "Fucking hell, John. You still look like fucking Burkamp in the 90s." And he turned around and he goes, "I hope you ain't pulling my plonker." So, sorry, this is fucking stupid. Anyway, his dad was obsessed with buying random shit. And like he had back in the day a couple of nice Jaguars, and you'd have
Yeah.
thought, you'd want to park your Jaguars in the garage. But mate, you couldn't
Yeah.
fit any vehicles in the garage because he bought a fucking garage full of this soft drink. It was called Aqua Libra. And I was like, fucking hell, what are you doing with a military store full of Aqua Libra? So it was actually a nice drink, but I mean, fucking hell, he didn't half suffer with tooth erosion afterwards.
I
Fucking tooth decay, mate. His breath stank. So his dad thought he was a bit of a gigolo, right? So up in the
Yeah.
loft, he had this sunbed. I remember
Right.
one random morning, Josh walks into school, fucking pink as anything. In January, we're like, "What the fuck, Josh?" He'd gone and fucking cremated himself under the sunbed.
Oh my god.
Oh dear,
Oh, brilliant.
mate. And
Fantastic.
do you remember when after we won the treble? Yeah. So we
Yeah.
went down to South America, I think it was, and we actually had an embarrassing loss against the Mexican team, Necaxa.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
Well, there was this
Yeah.
bloke who played for them, and if I remember correctly, his name was Montesinos, and he had this
Right.
stupid like haircut, and he'd sort of dyed his hair sort of blondie orange. And
Yes, I remember. Yes.
after fucking, so the next day, Josh came into school with that fucking haircut. It's like, what the fuck you doing, you twat? Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, fucking hell.
Oh, brilliant.
And I remember, right, once this was like randomly, Josh had got a couple of boxing gloves, like a couple of pairs of boxing gloves.
Yeah.
And so I went round his house and then we thought it'd be funny to do a bit of sparring. We had no boxing experience or anything. And I ended up
Yeah.
giving him a fucking black eye. And when his dad came home from work, he literally pasted Josh so badly and he gave me a full on bollocking as well. Oh dear, oh dear. I don't know how I didn't knock him out. So anyway, you'd be
Brilliant.
guaranteed, right, if Josh came over to your house, apart from
Yeah.
like fucking up the toilets with his fucking constipated turds, he'd like come out the bathroom with a different hairstyle. So he had the habit of like raiding like all of your parents' like hair products and your own hair products, and just come out and it's like smelling like a fucking boudoir, mate. And as you do,
Oh.
and then this must have been come year 10, right? He like ended up looking literally like Morton Gamps Pedersen. Oh mate, that was a Capri and a half. Oh dear, oh dear. Now some
Brilliant.
more random shit, right? So I remember when like we used to go on hikes and stuff. This was later on, and
Yeah.
me and Mark or Vest, we'd go out, with the correct footwear and proper snacks and a rucksack, bottle of water and stuff.
Yeah.
Josh didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
He'd just turn up in a normal pair of shoes, like he might have been wearing them like the day before at work or whatever. And we'd get to a random town in the middle of nowhere, and he'd just be like, "Yeah, there'll be a bakery or whatever." And then he'd just like fucking stop there. It would be like 9 in the morning, and he'd find a random butcher's and he'd be like, "Can you cook me up a bacon sarnie?" And we're like, "What are you going to do for water?" It's like, "I'll just drink from a river or something." No lies to God, he just fucking drink anything. And you know what the weather's like in England? Shit as anything. So we'd go on these long hikes, and these shoes would be fucking squelching. And he's like, "There." So these are waterproof. And we're like, "No, they're not." And he'd just be fucking walking through puddles, and he's like, "You see, they're waterproof." And when we get back to the car, he'd take his fucking shoes off. His fucking socks would be like sponges. And he was like, "They're still waterproof." Like, "No, they're not, you twat."
Brilliant.
Oh dear.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
mate, I've got a random
Pure
memory,
banter.
right? So, obviously, my parents were fortunately very liberal. You know, they let me
Yeah.
go to festivals and concerts. You know, at a young
Yeah.
age. Like, they were more overprotective with my brother and stuff. But you know, I was
Yeah.
like 15, I think, and they let me go to the Leeds festival. I got fucking drunk as anything on cider, and I don't know how I didn't die from a hangover the next day. But then they let me go to
Brilliant.
Newquay on a lad's holiday
Yeah.
when I was 17, which was brilliant. And Josh
Yeah.
came along. His parents, fucking half the time, didn't know where he was because he had the habit of fucking losing a mobile phone every 2 weeks. So, as you do. And this kid, right? So
Yeah.
he managed to come to Newquay, and his parents, like, they weren't with it either. It's genetic. And then, like, he came down, and I swear, if he brought a rucksack, it was a fucking miracle. And he had maybe two changes of clothes. He got a towel, he had some swim shorts, and that was about it, and a toothbrush, right? And now
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe it, right? So he couldn't find his phone, but he had his toothbrush with him. We were on the beach, on Fistral Beach in Newquay. What did he have? His toothbrush. We were out fucking clubbing at night. What did he have? Apart from his wallet in his pocket, his toothbrush. We're like, "Josh, you don't need to be that responsible with your toothbrush. You've only gone half your infancy without fucking brushing your teeth and drinking a fucking garage full of Aqua Libra." Oh dear. Oh dear. And he actually managed to
Brilliant.
pull this bird one night, and I'll tell you how he did it,
Yeah.
right? So me, when I was 17, so I was obviously doing one of the A levels I was doing at the time was Spanish, and that was one of my
Yeah.
fortes. And I was trying to, like, Newquay, mate, is a fucking cockfest because the ratio is about 10 blokes to one bird. And
Yeah.
anyway, I managed to pull this bird, and I pretended I was Spanish to sort of differentiate myself from the rest of the crowd. And then Josh
Yeah.
sort of came up with an idea that he was going to pretend that he was from a place in America called Little Rock, and he'd come over from some exchange, and he managed to pull. We were like, "Whoa, get in there, Josh!" So yeah, he did well, mate. And anyway, when you came
Thinking
up
on his
to
feet.
ours once, we went over to Josh's to watch the Champions League and
Yes.
have a takeaway. So, what
Yeah.
random memory can you remember from there, mate?
Well, because that was the evening that we slept over as well, wasn't it? If I remember, we all crashed out
Yeah,
in
that's
his
right.
living room. Yeah. And
Yeah, that's the one.
yeah, I remember. Yeah, and because that was the time that I woke up and saw this random old guy walking through his fucking living room and up his stairs. I'm like, who the fuck's that? You know, being his grandfather.
That's right. Fucking hell. He's mate. His family is not right in the head. They're like one of the only families in the modern world that don't lock their doors at night. So, oh,
Anyone could
well, it's
come in.
probably because they all
But yeah,
fucking
no,
lose their door keys.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
So
along with the mobile phone. Yeah, I remember.
yeah,
We were watching the football, and
yeah,
everyone was getting a bit excited and having a few bevies and stuff. And your mate Mark,
yeah,
he's got quite a sensitive stomach, hasn't he? If I remember.
yeah. It has.
Yeah.
That's right.
and, and I remember, I swear it was Josh. It must have been Josh. Um,
Yeah.
he, he was like getting proper steaming, and he done this almighty belch and blew it in the direction of Mark,
Yeah.
and like everyone's like, "Quick out the way!" He, thinking that he was going to yak up everywhere. He started heaving. I was like, "Oh, it's
Oh,
amazing! I'm not the only one with a mate who's got
oh, mate,
a weak stomach."
mate. I tell you something. That lad is going to get a fucking show done about him in the near future. Because, mate,
Yeah,
we've got so many fucking stories about him. Dear, oh dear. And then
definitely.
later on,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
Josh was proper keen on his golfing and stuff. You know, he grew up from a very golfing family. Anyway,
yeah,
he had some kind of like mini scholarship to go over to America and stuff. Anyway, the
yeah.
fucking prick, right? Before he could apply for his, I don't know if it was the green card or something. He obviously had to make sure
Yeah,
he didn't have a criminal record. And
yeah.
anyway, a couple of days before, he was just about to fill out the application form and attach the supporting documents. He got fucking blindoed in town, and he picked up this fucking broken bit of pipe, and
Right.
he started swinging it round and round, and he's like, "Everyone, look at my didgeridoo!" And then he fucking got arrested by the police. Fucking had to spend the night in a cell because they said he was being drunk and disorderly, and he was a threat to society.
With his
Oh dear,
didgeridoo.
fucking hell,
Oh, he doesn't have the best of
mate.
luck.
So I know, how back in the day we used to love going to like football league matches and stuff, like the lower leagues.
Yeah,
So I went to one
yeah,
random football league match with Josh and Mark, and we went to see Stoke against Sheffield United, and
yeah.
so I think it was those two teams anyway. So we were sat in the stands, and it was, there was quite a lot of action in that match and whatnot, and the crowds were singing along and stuff. And anyway, Sheffield United's best striker at the time was this bloke called Carla Saba, and
Right.
Carla Saba wasn't in the lineup. And Josh said to
Yeah.
us, he's like, "Oi, where's Carla Saba? Is he fit?" And then I swear, for some fucking coincidental reason, everybody stopped singing, and there was just like this deathly silence in the stadium. And everyone just looked at Josh when he said, "Is he fit?" And then me and Mark were fucking pissing ourselves. Yeah, mate, he's fucking fit as anything. And I have no fucking, I swear, how he got a job in a bank. I fucking, anyway, he ended up leaving, but he worked in a bank for quite a while. And I was like, "Josh, so
Yeah.
who are you working for?" He's like, "Husbacher." What the fuck's that? Husbacher. Sorry? Yeah, HSBC. So, mate, we could blame him for the fucking financial crash. So,
Brilliant.
oh dear.
That's good.
So, anyway, uh, then when we got married and stuff, Josh was like, fucking on our wedding, he dressed up in a white suit,
Yes, that was
as
my
you do
yeah, that was
for
my
someone's wedding.
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
sorry, mate.
he looked like something out of Miami Vice, and it's like I can't remember
No,
who. I think it was. I think it was your mate Dom. He was like, "Hey, Josh, Miami Vice called and wanted their suit back." And he's like, "Where the hell did you pick that up from?" He's like, "Oh, he's like, I found it in my dad's wardrobe. He hasn't worn it since the 80s." It was like this linen suit. Because he goes,
It
I better have a
was.
linen suit because it's quite hot over here.
Oh dear, oh dear. Fucking hell. And do you know what? When he was over, right, he was like, he'd forgot, as he does, he'd forgotten like his hair products for his Morton Gamst hair. And he's like, fucking hell, I
Yeah.
need to get something. And we were like, Josh, why don't you use this? And he's like, fucking hell, this is pretty decent. He never guessed what it was. Fucking
Oh,
after
who knows?
sun. So, oh,
Oh,
oh, fucking
bloody
hell.
hell.
Mate, so
Yeah.
on another occasion, right, he did come over and visit us again in Spain.
Yeah.
And we'd literally been going for like 3 days straight, just drinking and stuff and eating and fucking, having a good time. On the
Yeah.
fourth day, he experienced the one and only Spanish belly. And he
Nice.
had the shits. And we happened to be in a this random bar sat on a terrace. He's like, lads, I've got to go. I've got to go. But I was like, what's wrong? No, I've got to fucking go to the toilet. I was like, all right. And he went to the toilet and he came walking back holding his knees together. We're like, what the fuck's wrong? It's like, there's no fucking bog roll. So he grabbed he grabbed a fucking fistful of serviettes, these little rectangular things from the serviette dispenser from the table. And he went back and he came back later and he's like, oh, for fuck's sake. They were literally made of fucking recycled paper. Fucking finger had gone through the serviette and there was no soap to wash his hands, so he was in a fucking state.
All those years he
Oh,
took toilet roll in his bag and he didn't take it with him.
I know. Exactly.
There's
Oh, mate,
irony
he
in
had
there
to
somewhere.
fucking get a bit of. Totally, mate. He needed to get a bit of Spanish belly to declog his constipated intestines. Oh, fucking hell.
Oh,
Anyway,
bloody
so,
hell.
mate, got a few more little anecdotes, right? So this bloke, right,
Yep.
he had some serious issues with sleepwalking. So when he crashed round at ours, every night he'd fucking wake up and chat shit. And on our old sofa, we sort of improvised because like there was Dom and Mark as well. They'd crashed out on random
Yeah.
mattresses, but Josh got the
Yeah.
sofa. We tried to improvise by putting an elastic mattress sheet on the two sofa, the seat cushion sort of things.
Yeah.
And because he's
Yeah.
a fidget bum, he fucking kept on moving in his sleep.
Yeah.
And one of the elastic edges sort of pinged off and hit him on his shoulder. And he jumped up and he's like, there's a fucking rat in the flat. And he was fucking looking for the rat. And Mark was trying to fucking reassure him that there wasn't a rat. And he's like, I've been bitten on my shoulder. I need a fucking anti-rabies check. Oh dear.
Oh.
Oh dear. Fucking hell. All right. Listen, mate, flash forward a little bit more into the present. So he went on Dom's
Oh.
stag do and they went to Istanbul. And
Right.
no bullshit, right? Dom's got a mate down in London who is
Yeah.
who works for some sort of security agency related to
Right.
anti-terrorism. And
Yeah.
he brought it was fucked up. So he managed to put a tracker on Josh because
Right.
Dom knew that he was going to get fucking lost. So they rent. They apparently they'd hired out some Airbnb or whatever, but basically they got
Yeah.
like fucking. They they got scammed, and then they were in the middle of some fucking dive area, and then anyway, cut long story short, they were like, mate, we ain't got any accommodation or whatever, and Josh is like, fuck it, instead of being miserable, I'm going out partying. And then the others were like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. So they found this hostel, they left their baggage there, and Josh went out,
Yeah.
and he ended up getting fucking bladdered as fuck. And then the lads couldn't find him, and they'd been looking for him in Istanbul, one of the biggest cities in the world. And if it wasn't
Yeah.
for Dom's mate's tracking device, he would have been fucking lost and wouldn't have been able to fucking get on a flight back to the UK. So,
That's fantastic.
mate, I
Oh.
swear he is capable of downing pints in about 2 seconds. It's stupid. He's like opens his fucking gullet and it just goes straight down. And every time he belches now, he's got this weird like gag reflex where you think he's going to bring it back up. I'm not surprised, but oh dear. And now
Oh,
he's got this stupid saying. So he'll drink and he'll drive, which is not something that I sort of agree with. But anyway, the bloke,
yeah.
his rules 5 and drive because he's a fucking big drinker. And 5, it's just when he
Yeah.
starts to get tipsy, after 5 pints. So he's like 5 and drive, that's the rule. And
Yeah.
so once, right, he had a serious argument with his bird, and she was up at
Yeah.
Newcastle Uni, and he had to drive up. But he'd been playing a round of golf, and his mates were like, "Oh, come on, you can have a few drinks with us afterwards." So one drink turned into 5, and he's like, "Oh, fucking hell, I'm late going up to Newcastle." And then
Yeah.
he had another few more drinks on top of the 5, actually, it was. And he was driving up Capri, and he just drove over the fucking central reservation onto the other side of the motorway and down a fucking ditch. And the car fucking rolled over. And I mean, he's not a very smart guy, but one of the smartest things he ever did was he didn't ring for help until like 3 o'clock
Yeah.
in the afternoon the next day because he thought he'd get done for drink driving. So in the end,
Yeah.
he said that he fell asleep at the wheel and he didn't get like he didn't lose his license or get seriously fined or anything. So that was fucking mental. And anyway, into the very near present, he got into his darts, mate. He was like fucking a darts addict. He was in a league and
Yeah.
everything with his local team and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, the lockdown has seriously fucked him up. So the last thing I
Yeah.
saw is he was making like videos around his house, simulating his pub and his darts team. So he'd come up
Yeah.
with different episodes. So he'd got photo cutouts of the different members of the darts team around the
Yeah.
house, and he was sort of interacting with them. And then he'd do sort of imaginary competitions. And then he had this one cutout of this proper weirdo from his local pub with the biggest glasses on. When I swear, like fucking like 3-inch thick lenses on his glasses, and he was just making up random shit stories because this bloke is a typical like bullshitter, like your old mate bullshit Ben.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So dear, oh dear. So that's how he's been sort of trying to keep himself sane by imagining that he's at the pub playing darts with his mates.
Definitely keeps him on the
And
level.
then what was a surprise is actually now he's a dad. So all I'm going to say is fucking God
Fuck.
bless that child. Because they need to fucking insert a tracking device. So
Yeah.
anyway, on that note, mate, we better
Leave the
fucking wrap
baby.
things up.
Yes, mate. Oh, Jesus, it's been funny. It's been good. Needed a good laugh.
Yes, mate.
Oh,
Good old banter.
definitely.
Therapy. So if
That's
you
it,
are a
mate.
listener and you've survived the 15 minutes, you're a fucking legend. So respect.
Yes,
What are your
definitely.
closing words, mate?
So over and out from me, matey.
Speak to you later, you fucking chronic masturbators.